Dr. Jazz. Dr. Jazz.
Well, I started playing with Paul in 2000. Well, I think I got the gig in 2002, and so I was 24.
Wow, man.
Yeah,
How,
23.
how was that like for you? When did he just call you by phone or on phone, or like how did that happen actually?
Well, it's kind of a long story, but my friend Anders Christensen was playing in his band at that time.
Oh yeah.
And he got the gig from doing a session in New York with a Danish saxophone player called Jakob Bro, who was at Berkeley with Kurt Rosenwinkel, and Kurt was in the
I know him.
band.
Yeah.
So they were doing a recording in New York with Brian Blade on drums, and Brian canceled, and they brought in Paul because he was already familiar with Kurt. And then Paul was at that time in need of an electric bass player for an upcoming electric bebop band tour. So after one song, he stops playing and he's like looking at Anders and saying, "Can you do the next tour with the electric bebop band?" So Anders gets in the band, and then it just like, I don't know. I think that's the main reason. He recommended me to Paul Motian. And at that time I was living in New York. I was taking lessons with Chris Cheek, and I was hanging with Steve Cardenas and hanging out with Kurt also in New York. I knew a lot of members in the band. And so at the end of one of their tours, they basically, Paul always would ask, so who can do the next tour? It's going to be then. And then Ben Monder had a conflict. He was there was one date he couldn't do. And Paul was not into that. He was just like, okay, then I have to find somebody else. It's going to be too difficult. So basically he just like asked around, and Anders said, hey, you should call Jakob. And for a little while it didn't work. I remember I got the news and I was completely psyched, and then I wrote Steve, and Steve said, yeah, it's true, we were talking about you, but Wolfgang Muspil is doing the concerts. And I remember wanting to frame that email. It's like, okay, I got that close. That's okay for me.
Oh man.
And then I was at my parents' house, and I was sitting in my brother's room playing Grand Theft Auto one morning. And the phone rings, and it's Anders, and he's like, call Paul Motian now. And I was just like, say what? And I just like got the number, and I called Paul Motian, and he just talked to me as if we'd known each other all our lives. Like, hey man, how are you? So glad you can do the tour. I'm going to be sending you music and flight tickets. And
that's bizarre.
It was just totally bizarre. But it was definitely the most important moment of my musical life in many ways, because it opened up so many doors for me, of course. And also it was, I had 6 months to prepare basically. So I was, imagine preparing for a gig like that. It's like for me, it was my dream gig. So I spent every wake hour just like learning Paul Motian's material, the standards he played, his own material. I was in a summer house with my friends where we were jamming the songs as a trio, and so I just like, and every time I didn't work on it, I was listening to his music, trying to understand it even more than I had done before. Got the gig. So it was the best school experience of my life, no doubt about it. And that has happened a few times afterwards also. I was also playing with Lee Konitz in his group, and
really? I didn't know that. Oh really? Oh wow.
Just 3 concerts with Dave Douglas and Linda May Johan and Jorge on drums.
Really? Oh man.
So, and that was, I had months to prepare for that, and was talking to different people who played with Lee to know what kind of songs he was working on and which key and etc. So those kind of concerts, tours are really, it's something you learn a lot from, of course.
Oh yeah, that's the university there. I mean,
yeah. So, but the Paul Motian tour started with us being in Italy, and Paul just like came into the lobby and he sat down the cymbals and he's like, hey man, he gave me a hug and said, let's go to a rehearsal space. I want to hear how you play. And I was just like, whoa. So we went to a rehearsal space in a little town in Italy, and yeah, people were standing outside wanting autographs, and I was just like,
And you played alone? You just played with
everybody.
him? Everybody.
Came,
Okay.
And I was just like, my autograph. Yeah, no, I might be on a plane home tonight, so don't. If Paul don't like me. And we played Introspection, and he just like pointed at me and said, "You solo." And I just like soloed, and he stopped playing. He's like, "Yeah, man, I like you. Let's go to dinner."
Wow, that's beautiful. And
So,
how was the first gig then? Like
the first gig was it was cool. The first gig was actually a little strange because it was a reinterpretation of Monk's Town Hall concert. So there was local musicians playing as well.
Okay.
But then we went to, I think the first gig of the tour was in Italy, now in Holland.
Mm-hmm.
And the next morning, Paul and I had breakfast, and he said, "Can you do the next tour?" And I was like, "Okay, thanks a lot, man."
That's beautiful, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And then later on, I recorded all those concerts and sent him the tapes, and he called me out of the blue, really liking, the contribution I tried to do, and I got the notes from his diaries, and it's really positive. Actually, I'm just
oh wow,
it's pretty special time of my life.
Yeah. How was he like a band leader to you guys? Like, I mean, he was older than everyone, I think, but 20 years at least, right? Yeah.
Sure.
Except when Swallow did it, of course, but like.
No, he was. I mean, he was great. I mean, he's also like a god basically to me. He's like, and he would say stuff sometimes like after 2 nights at the Vanguard, he would come up to me and "Oh man, now I remember why I hired you." Okay. And you improved your ballad playing. Thanks a lot, Paul. So meaning I didn't know how to play ballads before. So he was, he would give you small lessons like that. But he was wonderful. I mean, he was just such a joyous person, and basically for me, every time he opened his mouth, it was a lesson for me, and also I felt so grateful to be around him.
Yeah,
a lot of love.
It's incredible
coming from him.